The sun was barely up when Reginald Carter stepped out of his brick Texas home, trash bags swinging at his side. But before he reached the curb, 3 figures blocked his driveway. 2 men stood in cheap black tactical vests, Velcro straps hanging loose, scuffed boots planted firm. Between them, HOA President Linda Whitfield crossed her arms, her eyes cold. One man barked, "Community enforcement, you're in violation. We're here to detain you." Reginald froze, setting his trash bag on the ground. Calmly, he placed his hands on his hips and said, "Step 1 inch closer and you'll regret it." Linda sneered, "You don't respect rules, Carter. Today, you'll learn." The quiet street held its breath. From behind curtains, eyes peered out. A teenager across the street lifted his phone. This wasn't a routine HOA visit. This was a showdown. Reginald's voice carried with a steady calm that unsettled the imposters. The taller one adjusted mirrored sunglasses, jaw tight, boots scraping against concrete. His partner shifted nervously, a paper notice clutched in his fist. Linda's chin lifted higher, desperate to project authority. "You ignored every warning. This is what happens when you defy this neighborhood," she spat. Reginald tilted his head slightly, his gaze sharp, but his tone still low. Trespassing doesn't become law just because you print a patch on a vest. Curtains fluttered. A mother pulled her toddler closer to her chest while peeking from a porch. Across the street, Marcus Johnson raised his phone higher, whispering, "You're live, Mr. Carter. They're all watching." The imposters stiffened. The neighborhood wasn't silent anymore. It was a stage, and every word was being recorded. This clash hadn't appeared overnight. For months, Linda Whitfield had made Reginald Carter her obsession. Every week, a new notice arrived. One about a crack in his driveway, another about his gatherings running past 9, another demanding his trash bins be hidden perfectly out of sight. Fines stacked into the thousands, but Reginald refused to bow. He paid what was fair and fought what was unjust. Linda saw it differently. To her, Reginald wasn't just another homeowner. He was defiance wrapped in politeness. When letters failed, she turned to intimidation. She whispered in board meetings about setting an example. And now, on this morning, her plan stood on his driveway. 2 hired enforcers in mismatched gear, bought authority stitched into their vests. Linda's crusade against one man had escalated into a performance for the whole block. Reginald Carter had never been the loud one. To neighbors, he was the man who waved while mowing, the one who carried groceries for Mrs. Henderson next door, the one who kept to himself. Calm, polite, measured. That was his reputation. Linda had mistaken that calm for weakness. What she didn't know was that beneath the surface lived a man who had seen real authority, who had walked into rooms with men who lived and died by power. He didn't wear his history on his sleeve. He blended in. A quiet 2-story home, a trim lawn, a polite nod at the mailbox. That was Reginald. But standing there now, fists at his hips, his eyes unblinking, he was no longer the neighbor everyone underestimated. For the first time, the block would see him for who he really was. Linda Whitfield believed order was survival. To her, rules weren't guidelines, they were weapons. In late-night meetings, she ranted that softness would destroy the neighborhood. That's when she found Eddie and Sean, 2 men desperate enough to play soldiers for a price. Online ads promised tactical vests and enforcement patches. Linda paid cash, handed them her complaints, and told them they had authority. What she created was a fantasy squad with no law, no training, no real power. And this morning, she unleashed them on her most stubborn opponent. Reginald Carter wasn't supposed to resist. He was supposed to bow, to tremble, to be humiliated in front of the neighborhood. Instead, he stared her down, unflinching. The soda can, rolling from his split trash bag, clattered across the driveway like a warning bell. This standoff was only beginning. Eddie, the taller of the 2 imposters, stepped forward, his vest hanging unevenly across his chest.
He lowered his voice as though it gave him weight. "Community enforcement. You're being detained until the police arrive." The words fell heavy, rehearsed but hollow. Reginald didn't flinch. He placed his trash bag aside and squared his stance. "You're not law enforcement. You're trespassing." Linda's face twisted. "You think you're untouchable, Carter. You've ignored every letter, every fine. These men are here to make you comply." The shorter man, Sean, fumbled with a paper, rattling off, "Property violations, noise complaints, unauthorized modifications." Reginald's voice cut sharp. "That's not a charge, that's desperation." For the first time, murmurs rippled from porches. The HOA had staged a trial in his driveway, but the jury was already watching from every window. Linda's obsession spilled out of her in sharp words. "This neighborhood has rules, Carter. People like you don't get to bend them." Her voice carried down the street, cold and commanding. Reginald's jaw flexed. He didn't raise his voice, but the calm steel in it sliced through her theatrics. Respect isn't forced with cheap patches and empty threats. Eddie's mirrored shades reflected Reginald's face, unreadable, but his hand twitched near his vest as though daring to escalate. Sean shifted uncomfortably, sweat gathering at his temple. The tension thickened with every breath. Across the street, Marcus lifted his phone higher. "You're live," he whispered, his voice barely audible but enough to spread across the crowd. Linda's glare snapped toward him, but the damage was done. This wasn't private anymore. It was a broadcast, and the audience was growing. It started small, curtains fluttering, blinds tilted, but now doors cracked open, neighbors leaning over porches. A mother whispered to her child, "Stay back," clutching the little one close. A retired couple, the Hendersons, stood side by side, shaking their heads. Marcus, steadied with his phone, streamed to the world. "They're trying to arrest Mr. Carter. No badges, just vests." The imposters stiffened under the unseen eyes. Linda raised her chin, speaking louder, as if volume could disguise her slipping control. "Everyone will see that Carter refuses to obey order." But order didn't look like her anymore. It looked like a shaky live stream climbing in viewers. It looked like neighbors whispering, "This is wrong." Reginald stood silent, letting her words hang in the air, knowing every second was another crack in the illusion she had built. Sean unfolded the crumpled sheet from his vest and read it like scripture. Violations, driveway cracks, gatherings, trash non-compliance. His voice trembled despite the list. Reginald almost laughed. "That paper's worth less than the ink it's printed on." Linda hissed. "These violations destroy property values. We can't let you drag us down." Reginald took a slow step forward, closing the space, his voice lowering so neighbors leaned in to hear. "Destroy property values? No, you're destroying this neighborhood." Eddie's jaw flexed, his sunglasses hiding doubt, but his boots shuffled against the concrete. The list in Sean's hand shook. Paper meant to intimidate now looked fragile, pathetic against a man who refused to bow. For the first time, neighbors murmured openly. No one was siding with Linda. The HOA's paper shield was turning into ash. Linda's mask cracked. Her tone rose into anger that felt desperate, not commanding. "If you won't respect order, we'll force you. This is bigger than you, Carter. You can't win." Eddie's hand hovered near his vest again, posture stiffening. Sean muttered, "Maybe we should," but Linda cut him off with a glare sharp enough to slice. Across the street, Marcus called louder, "Thousands are watching! You're live now!" Eddie froze. Sean paled. For the first time, Linda's certainty faltered, a flicker in her eyes betraying the truth. She was losing control. Reginald finally spoke, his words calm but heavy. "You think power comes from threats, but real power isn't borrowed from costumes and fake notices, and today everyone sees it." The block fell into silence, broken only by the faint hum of phones, recording history in the making.
The tension no longer belonged to the driveway. It belonged to the block. Marcus Johnson, a high school junior with quick fingers and quicker instincts, shouted across the street, "You're live, Mr. Carter. Thousands are watching." His phone trembled slightly, but his stream did not. Viewers piled in, comments racing across his screen. Neighbors murmured, shifting closer to porches. Sean's eyes darted between the glowing phone and Reginald's steady stance. "Linda," he whispered, "this is getting out of hand." She ignored him, jaw tight, voice rising. "You think a crowd changes anything? We have rules, Carter, and rules will be enforced." Reginald tilted his head, his voice even. "No, Linda, rules keep order. What you're doing is chaos." The neighbors heard it, and the weight of the line rippled through the crowd.
Sean's voice betrayed the first crack. "Eddie, maybe we should back off. This isn't worth—" But Linda cut him short with a furious glare. "Don't you dare fold. You're here to prove this man isn't above the law." Eddie shifted uneasily, his mirrored shades hiding his eyes, but his stiff jawline betrayed nerves. Reginald studied them with calm precision, his chest rising slow, unhurried, as if every breath measured the distance between words and action. Around them, the neighborhood tightened like a noose. Every porch light flicked on, every lens pointed forward. Even the Hendersons muttered to each other, loud enough for the block to hear. "She's gone too far this time." Linda's lips pressed thin, her body rigid. She thought volume could mask desperation, but the crowd knew. Her control was slipping fast.
Eddie finally snapped. He reached into his vest and yanked out a pair of handcuffs, their steel clinking together like a starter's pistol. Gasps rippled down the block. A woman holding her baby shouted, "You can't arrest him. This isn't police business." Linda barked louder, voice cutting through the murmurs. "Do it! Put him in cuffs! Show him he's not above us!" Eddie stepped forward, holding the cuffs like a weapon. Reginald didn't move. His eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "Take one more step with those cuffs and you'll regret it for the rest of your life." His voice was calm, surgical. The crowd shifted forward, phones tilting, every angle capturing the tension. Neighbors weren't just watching anymore, they were part of the confrontation. The air was thick, charged, as if the entire street was on trial.
Eddie's arm trembled slightly, but Linda screamed over the doubt. "Don't let him scare you. He's been a problem since the day he moved here. This neighborhood deserves better." From the curb, the Hendersons shouted back, "Enough, Linda. We all see what this is." More voices joined. "This is harassment. He hasn't done anything wrong." Linda's face flushed crimson. She pointed a shaking finger at Reginald. "You think you're strong because they cheer? You've undermined this community for the last time." Reginald's gaze fixed on her, steady and unblinking. "Respect isn't demanded with shouts, Linda. It's earned. And right now, you're losing it with every word." The crowd erupted in murmurs, some openly clapping. Linda's shoulders stiffened, her chest heaving. Her army was crumbling in plain sight. The standoff reached a fever pitch. Eddie waved the cuffs again, his voice cracking as he barked, "This is your last warning. Comply or we'll restrain you." His partner Sean finally snapped, blurting, "Eddie, stop. This isn't worth prison time." Neighbors cheered his hesitation, their shouts rising like a wave. "Put them down! We're not blind, Linda. You've lost control." Linda's voice shrieked over them, desperate, raw. "Don't listen to them. Do it now. Arrest him." But her command only sharpened the split. Eddie's hands shook, the cuffs rattling in the Texas sun, while Sean edged back, muttering under his breath, "This is madness." Reginald took a single step closer, his voice low but carrying across the block. "You're standing on my driveway, in front of every witness here. One move, Eddie, and it's over."
The block went silent, holding its breath. Eddie lunged, swinging the cuffs toward Reginald's wrist. In one fluid motion, Reginald sidestepped, seized the man's arm, and twisted with precision. The cuffs clattered, then snapped, not on Reginald, but on Eddie's own wrists. The man dropped to his knees, stunned. Gasps rippled across the street, followed by a swell of cheers.
Sean froze, backing away in disbelief. Linda's voice split the night. "What are you doing? You can't arrest him!" Reginald's eyes didn't leave Eddie. His voice was calm, professional. "I didn't. He arrested himself." Phone zoomed in, neighbors cheering louder. Linda's control was broken. But Reginald wasn't finished. He straightened, pulling a worn leather wallet from his back pocket. The next reveal would end the game entirely.
Reginald held his wallet high. Inside gleamed a gold badge that caught the streetlight and blinded the lie. His voice cut through the noise, cold and final. "I'm Special Agent Carter, Federal Bureau of Investigation." For a beat, the world seemed to freeze. Then voices erupted, shouts of disbelief, gasps of awe. Marcus screamed, "He's FBI!" Neighbors leaned over porches, their phones capturing every glint of the badge, every flicker of Linda's face as the truth sank in. Sean dropped his vest like it was poison. "I'm done," he muttered. "I didn't sign up for this." Eddie knelt in cuffs, trembling, his bravado shattered. Linda shook her head violently. "This isn't real. He's bluffing." But her words fell flat. No one believed her anymore. Authority had shifted. Reginald owned the street now.
Neighbors flooded the sidewalks, no longer hiding. Mrs. Henderson shouted, "We knew you'd go too far, Linda." A young mother raised her voice. "You endangered all of us with this stunt." The crowd wasn't whispering anymore. It was roaring. Linda stood frozen, color draining from her cheeks, her words tripping over themselves. This is a misunderstanding. I was only protecting standards." Reginald's tone stayed calm, each word striking harder than any shout. "Standards don't come with fake police and handcuffs, Linda. This isn't about rules, it's about control, and you lost it." The crowd's reaction was immediate. Applause, shouts, accusations hurled at the HOA president. Phones streamed live across the city. A spectacle born of intimidation had become her trial, and the verdict was being written in real time.
Red and blue lights painted the brick homes as police cruisers screeched into the cul-de-sac. Doors slammed. Officers stepped out, hands near belts. "Hands where we can see them," one barked. Reginald raised one hand, still holding Eddie restrained with the other. His voice was calm, firm. "Special Agent Reginald Carter, badge and ID in my pocket. This man impersonated law enforcement and attempted unlawful restraint on my property." The lead officer approached, studied the badge, then nodded with visible relief. "You're good, Agent. We'll take him." As Eddie was lifted to his feet, Sean threw his vest on the ground. "I'm out. I'll talk," he shouted, trembling. Linda lunged forward, her voice cracking. "He's twisting everything. I'm the HOA president. You have to believe me." But neighbors shouted back, drowning her out. "We saw it all!" Linda's voice broke into shrieks as officers guided her aside, neighbors hurling words like stones. "Abuse of power! You've disgraced us!" Her authority shattered. Her reign ended under flashing lights. Reginald stood tall in his driveway, silent, his gaze fixed on the scene. Phones caught his every move, every flicker of composure. Finally, he spoke, not loudly, but with the weight of a gavel. Real authority protects, fake authority collapses. The words rippled through the crowd, silencing even Linda's protests. Then came the eruption. Cheers, applause, neighbors chanting his name, their voices rising into the night. Marcus grinned into his phone. This whole street just watched power flip. The Hendersons clasped hands, whispering, "It's over." And as squad cars rolled away, the block knew the truth. Their neighborhood would never be ruled by fear again.